First off, this is gonna be a series I'm doing for those of you who wanna rewatch a classic battle from the manga/anime, but are too lazy to reread, or maybe you've seen it before, but didn't fully grasp what was going on, or maybe it's just a place for you guys to chat. Anyway, today is probably gonna be a pretty chill video. I'm gonna summarize, comment on, and re-explain the entire historic battle between the King of Curses Sukuna and Satoru Gojo for you guys. No beating around the bush, let's jump straight into the video. On Christmas Eve, December 24th, in Shinjuku, Japan, an unavoidable battle between the strongest in Jujutsu history, Railman Sukuna, and the strongest modern-day Jujutsu sorcerer, Satoru Gojo, took place. Facing Kenjaku's plot to assimilate the people of Japan, the sorcerers on the good side were forced to stop him. However, first and foremost, they had to defeat Sukuna, who was allied with the stitched-up guy. But since he's the strongest, all hope was placed on Gojo, the other sorcerer with the same title. Back to the battle, Sukuna seems to have the advantage. He's got two innate techniques. One is his own, with Dismantle and Cleave, and the ability to use the flame arrow after a chant. The other he got from taking over Megumi's body. This gives him the ability to use 10 Shadows technique with 10 powerful Shikigami. Going up against the strongest in history, the strongest modern-day sorcerer is the only one who possesses the 6 eyes, allowing him to exploit the limitless technique as masterfully as possible. You could say the entire space around Gojo is both a sword and a shield, giving the teacher comprehensive offense and defense, aping out any opponent from an extremely far distance. Sukuna felt the terrifying bloodlust radiating from Gojo, who was standing in another building. And wait, what is Gojo doing? Fine tones, heavenly garland, cursed rope, clear moonlight. These are cursed tools along with hand signs. Oh, so that's it. Gojo performed all the steps fully to ensure he could unleash the full destructive power of Hollow Purple, boosted by Yudaheim's technique and principal Gakuganji. At this moment, Gojo's damage output increased more than 3 times normal. The entire space within the attack range seemed to be distorted. The city for a few kilometers between Gojo and Sukuna seemed to vanish. However, Sukuna blocked the attack, but he couldn't dodge because the barrier erected by Ikiji tricked Sukuna about the scale of Gojo's technique. Gojo landed on the ground from high up, while Sukuna emerged from the rubble with his bleeding hands, which were being healed by reverse curse technique. It's pretty obvious. That attack was way too far to finish Sukuna, but it was Gojo's way of showing his swag in front of the guy known as the King, meaning he was on the upper hand and Sukuna was the one challenging him. Seriously, Gojo, wouldn't a simple moshi moshi be faster? Both of them charged at each other and started with punches first. Gojo, with the ability of Limitless, allowed him to control the space around him. A snap of his fingers stuck the King of Curses, a wall. Another snap, the King of Curses broke through the wall and flew backward. The two strongest started pointing at each other. One side used curse technique laps, Lu to continuously create a pulling force, throwing structures at the opponent. One side used cleave to cut everything into pieces. Neither side would yield. Sukuna initially had the advantage in technique efficiency, but Sukuna's slashes couldn't cut through Gojo's defense layer. But as a warrior who had trained through thousands of battles, Sukuna used domain amplification to neutralize the limitless defense layer. Explaining domain amplification, it allows the user to divert the opponent's cursed energy flow into nothingness, thereby nullifying their technique. This turned the infinite space around Gojo into finite space, and Sukuna could punch through. The trade-off is that the King of Curses cannot use curse techniques while this ability is active. Just with this simple warm-up, all the surrounding buildings collapsed. The warm-up ended. The main expansion, the ultimate technique of Jujutsu sorcerers, was unleashed simultaneously. A sinister shrine, Malevolent Shrine, was erected, putting Sukuna up high, while the infinitely dark space of Unlimited Void, the technique embedded in both their domains, clashed fiercely. Boom. Gojo's domain shattered right after. Surprisingly, the ultimate Jujutsu technique of the Heavenly Honored One was smashed, and immediately, a sharp slash from Cleave came towards Gojo's neck, explaining Malevolent Shrine. It's a domain that doesn't use a barrier to trap the opponent. By giving up on trapping the opponent, Sukuna allowed his attack range to become wider. On the other hand, Gojo's Unlimited Void is a typical domain that has a barrier edge to trap the opponent. The main barriers are strong inside but weak outside. So, even though the techniques inside were equal in power, they weren't outside, which is why Gojo's domain was completely overwhelmed in a short time. But Gojo, the one standing at the pinnacle of modern Jujutsu sorcerers, wasn't easy to defeat. Reverse curse technique was immediately activated, allowing Gojo to still be alive. But the prerequisite was to jump out of Sukuna's technique range immediately. Gojo at this moment couldn't teleport because his curse technique was in disarray after the domain disappeared. He could only rely on reverse curse technique and physical combat to escape the slashes that were tearing him apart. New Shadow style, simple domain was used by Gojo. This is a technique that allows the user to automatically react to an opponent's technique directed at them, temporarily freeing him from the slashing attacks. But facing the pressure from Sukuna's domain, the duration of simple domain for the weak is only measured in seconds. The domain shattered and was then unleashed again. However, perhaps Sukuna's slashes had made Gojo a bit thinner. What had to come, came. Gojo fired a curse technique reversal. Red, slamming Sukuna into the shrine, slightly damaging a part of his face. Gojo successfully jumped out of the barrier. Normally, after using domain expansion, the curse technique becomes chaotic, so the user can't unleash their technique. But the unexpected thing here is that Gojo used reverse curse technique to restore his depleted technique, something unprecedented before, because reverse curse technique was previously only associated with the ability to heal the physical body. And because he could only cut through Gojo due to the fourfold effect within the domain, Sukuna increased the range of his shrine. Gojo unleashed his domain again, two barriers clashed once more. But look, Gojo's domain didn't shatter immediately this time. The reason is that the teacher changed the domain's conditions, allowing it to defend better from the outside. Both techniques continued to nullify each other, so punching took over again, however, caught cheating by using a floaty in the fight. Information about the characteristics of Unlimited Void not affecting those Gojo touches. Sukuna successfully maneuvered and rendered Teacher 5's technique ineffective. At the same time, he also made another pact regarding his domain. By giving up the sure hit attack, the damage output of the slashing attack was greatly increased. Sukuna proved that what Gojo could do, he could also do. A crack appeared again, Unlimited Void collapsed again, 2-0 for Sukuna. Gojo continued to get cut, but the slashes were too shallow. The secret technique, Falling Blossom Emotion, from the Gojo family was used. This is a technique similar to Simple Domain, also nullifying techniques directed at oneself. But instead of creating a spatial area, it only surrounds the body, although the dodging effectiveness is not as good. In return, it won't be destroyed. Gojo accepted the cuts to once again restore his technique. Domain expansion for the third time. But unlike the first two times, Gojo's domain expanded so much that it swallowed a vast area and whoosh, immediately shrunk like a ball. Expanding immediately and then immediately compressing. Thus, Gojo changed the domain's structure once more to increase the domain's defensive capability. The techniques clashed. The space around the barrier vibrated intensely and shattered after 3 minutes. Gojo lost again. Sukuna's shrine also collapsed right after. Sukuna got a hole punched in his chest and spat blood. Tie in round 3. Wah. To deal with Gojo's domain defense layer, Sukuna also shrunk his domain to increase the density of his technique. This successfully broke through Gojo's prison, but at the same time, the teacher also managed to deal enough damage so the King of Curses couldn't maintain his domain. Both of them charged at each other again while their techniques were recovering after the previous clash. Sukuna had learned the principle of Gojo's technique recovery. The main expansion for the 4th time. Once again, Malevolent Shrine was enveloped by Unlimited Void. Both continued to unleash their beautiful techniques. The shrine was shattered once more, accompanied by the collapse of Unlimited Void. Equal power, equal weight. The pace of the battle accelerated. But the one accelerating was Gojo. With the advantage in his superior physical ability, Gojo successfully made Sukuna recover a moment slower than him. Unlimited Void was erected before the shrine was completed. Even though it was only faster by less than 0.1 seconds, that was more than enough. Round 5 of the 2 strongest was decided. The effectiveness of Unlimited Void is just too incredible. It allows Gojo to inject an infinite amount of fragmented information into the opponent's head. The opponent's brain won't be able to process that pile of information and will become immobile. This is the key factor that made even being just a moment faster more than enough to defeat the King of Curses. For the first time, the domain of the strongest in history was defeated after 2 minutes and 40 seconds. The shrine collapsed, clear affirmation that Gojo's technique effectiveness is more dangerous and superior to Sukuna's slashes. His fate at this moment was like a fish on a chopping block. No one could be safe when caught within Gojo's domain. But clink, Furubureura, from within the shadow, the otherworldly divine general, Mahoraga, appear. The strongest card in the 10 Shadows technique was summoned. It swung its sword and cracked Gojo's domain. To the teacher's astonishment, Gojo's biggest worry had arrived. Mahoraga had adapted to unlimited void. Sukuna emerged with his body recovered and a sinister smile, explaining Mahoraga, it's the strongest Shikigami in the 10 Shadows technique with the ability to adapt and nullify techniques. The condition is that it needs time to be exposed to that technique. Depending on the complexity, the adaptation time will vary, measured by the number of rotations of the 8-handled wheel on its head. The one who takes the hit to adapt can be itself or the owner if given the 8-handled wheel. To prevent Mahoraga from being destroyed by Gojo before it could adapt to the technique, Sukuna hid the 8-handled wheel in the dark part inside him. More precisely, he hid it in Megumi's soul, which was subdued inside. Because unlimited void attacks the spirit, not the physical body, this tricked Gojo. After 5 domain expansions, the teacher's most complex ability had been adapted to. However, the hope of Teacher 5 wasn't extinguished yet. Sukuna was forced to rely on Mahoraga to deal with the opponent's domain, while Teacher 5 could easily deal with it before it could break the domain, as long as it's unleashed. A main expansion for the 6th time. It didn't deploy successfully. Blood flowed from Gojo's nose. His vision started to blur. For the first time, everyone witnessed the usually high and mighty Gojo lowering himself before someone else. The principle of Gojo's recovery is quite shocking. The technique is embedded in the right frontal lobe of the brain. The reason the technique becomes chaotic when performing domain expansion is because at this time, the technique part of the brain is overloaded. To put it simply, it's too hot. Turns out, reverse curse technique actually couldn't cool down the frontal lobe, so the teacher just destroyed it. Each time he expanded and used reverse curse technique to recover, it was to reset the technique back to the initial level. But just like anything else, too many shocks and it gets paralyzed. The teacher could no longer hold on against the king of curses after 6 consecutive times in one go. Sigh, maybe the strongest is only born when I'm temporarily away. Hand signs were used. Gojo at this moment was just helpless, sitting still against the slashes from Sukuna. The 8-handled wheel had also been placed on his head. The domain at this point would definitely close. Gojo couldn't escape. Malevolent shrine attacked, and pop. Blood splattered from Sukuna's eyes and mouth. The shrine wasn't even fully up and it failed. What's going on? Over there, the other guy only collapsed after 6 times. You've only done it twice and can't use your technique anymore. Haha, the old teacher over there suddenly revived and laughed mockingly at the arrogant old man. Unlimited void is truly too terrifying. Just getting hit once for 10 seconds, its effect was equal to, or even more than, Gojo self-destructing his brain 5 times. At this moment, neither Sukuna nor Gojo could unleash domain expansion anymore. Back to the initial fighting style, whoever utilizes their technique potential better will win. Analyzing the current situation, after no longer being able to deploy domains, Gojo seems to have the upper hand with his extraordinary close combat ability supported by the infinite space from Limitless, which makes it impossible for Sukuna to touch Teacher 5. In response to this, Sukuna used the 8-handled wheel on himself to try and adapt to Limitless. The time factor continues to be set. If Sukuna stalls long enough, Gojo's untouchable advantage will be removed and reduce his win rate. However, Sukuna can't keep dodging or taking hits forever. Gojo's skill utilization level is too high. Gojo's punches are almost always buffed with critical, lethal damage because simultaneously at the point of impact, the target will be both pushed away and pulled back. While if the distance is extended, Gojo declares, I control the space around here. Sukuna, with his ability to control his technique, can flexibly turn domain amplification on and off. When amplification is on, the technique won't work. But in this case, Sukuna can limit it by interrupting the adaptation process a little when he swings a punch and turns it off immediately after to continue adapting. It's estimated that in 4 more rotations, Gojo will be completely nullified. The battle continues. Gojo's attacks are becoming increasingly complex. His mobility also increased. The battlefield is now where one person is optimizing damage with varied twisting attacks, setting traps all over the place, and the other is optimizing defense through flexible turning of his barrier on and off. Equal power, equal weight. Neither side would yield. But the issue is, as long as Sukuna hasn't adapted to Limitless yet, the game is still in Gojo's hands. A trap prepared from a curved red attack earlier returned exploded right in Sukuna's blind spot. Black flash. A critical hit straight to Sukuna, who wasn't defending. Even if he's the king of curses, his consciousness was lost. The eight-handled will fell off. Just when he thought he had won, right at the point of contact with the ground, Mahoraga attacked from the shadow again, saving Sukuna. Gojo lost his balance due to the attack and failed to finish Sukuna in the next blow. Mahoraga's appearance at this point added another challenge for the teacher. By chanting to compensate for the output that had been adapted to, he tried to destroy Mahoraga as quickly as possible. Sukuna had now recovered in time thanks to the time Mahoraga bought him. He was back in the fight. At this point, it was no longer dismantle and cleave against Limitless, but the 10 Shadows technique magic formation. The battle of the Gojo and Zenin families from years ago was being replayed. With support from Mahoraga, every moment Gojo's Limitless was suppressed due to contact with this Shikigami. Sukuna utilized it to create a pincer attack from techniques extracted from the 10 Shadows technique. The situation began to balance out as Gojo showed signs of having to defend. A little explanation: what Mahoraga adapted to wasn't the whole technique system, but individual aspects, starting from unlimited void, gradually to the limitless defense layer. The cursed technique lapse, blue and cursed technique reversal. Red had also been, and were being, adapted to. The reversal technique is more complex, so it also took more time. Sukuna's current advantage lies in the pincer attack. He used another technique from the 10 Shadows technique, also summoning Combined Beast, Nu and Toad. Born after Nu inherited strength from the giant serpent and the deer, it has the ability to launch powerful attacks covered in lightning, and the ability to heal, which was used on Sukuna. They pushed Gojo into a 3-on-1 battle. By this point, it's also the final stage of this legendary battle. Gojo will have to struggle against the pressure from the 2 Shikigami, while Sukuna will ambush from the outside with high-pressure water jets extracted from the Shikigami Max Elephant, trying to exploit Gojo's openings to finish him off. Gojo was still handling the 2 Shikigami pretty well until Slash, a slashing attack, but it was fired from Mahoraga. It cut off Gojo's right arm. Sukuna came forward to press Gojo, but the thing is, Gojo's madness began to ripen. Only you aren't worthy of facing me. Maximum output, a technique to amplify the damage output of a move. The incredibly powerful cursed technique lapse. Blue slammed into Nu and Toad. This Shikigami was twisted to the extreme and disintegrated. Hollow purple, and the unexpected end. Gojo was now in peak condition. His arm had also been recovered after using Black Flash. Jujutsu sorcerers enter a state of exhilaration similar to sports. Gojo's spirit and technique began to elevate. For the first time in 1,000 years, the King of Curses felt uneasy. A speed blitz attack knocked Mahoraga and Sukuna into each other, followed by another Black Flash. Sukuna was completely on the back foot at this moment. 8-handled, divergent Sila, reciprocal, pass, light, will, commandment, manifest, the chant. Red was used, but the thing is, Gojo aimed it straight up into the sky, right where the blue sphere was just after tearing up Nu and Toad. Quick explanation: the limitless forward technique is blue, which has the ability to pull things. The reversal technique is red, which has the ability to push everything. When the 2 blue and red spheres combine, the purple sphere, hollow purple, is activated, capable of wiping out everything in its path. Unleashing it step by step instead of performing hollow purple directly successfully tricked Sukuna, because he only wasn't letting Gojo have any space to perform. By this point, you guys need to focus. Even though it's just a moment in the story, analyzing it is quite intricate. Mahoraga, on Sukuna's command, jumped up to destroy the blue sphere, but was immediately blocked by Gojo. The reason the teacher was so fast was by utilizing the pulling force from blue. Mahoraga, being immune, wasn't affected anymore, thus its speed wasn't increased. His subordinate failed. Sukuna fired a water jet trying to destroy the red sphere when Gojo wasn't there. Immediately, Gojo chanted, restored the output of blue, and changed the trajectory of the water jet, swallowing it whole. Everything was decided. Standing high up 9 tones, heavenly garland, cursed rope, clear moonlight. At the intersection point of the 2 spheres, hollow purple, 100% power was unleashed, turning the entire Shinjuku area into rubble. Its power was so strong that even Gojo was affected. Mahoraga was immediately destroyed. Sukuna was still alive but had no strength left. Emerging from the dust cloud, he could barely stand. Gojo healed his wound and won. Not long after that, Gojo lay on the ground, split in half. Sukuna explained that Mahoraga wouldn't stop adapting, even after a technique had been adapted. The slashing attack fired from Mahoraga at that moment didn't carry the nullification property and was expanded. It cut straight into the space around Gojo. This battle had gone on long enough that Sukuna also successfully inherited that. The slash that cut through the world. Something that surpassed Gojo's infinite space. It cut through the t-shirt. The modern Jujutsu world said goodbye to its strongest. And that was the entire course of events, as well as my explanation of the legendary battle between Ryomen Sukuna and Satoru Gojo. The result is that the King of Curses still defended his title. This is definitely the best battle in the entire series, where all the most beautiful techniques were used and exploited completely. This makes me even more scared that a second Madara has appeared, because now I don't know what Jeej is going to do with the future developments. What do you guys think about this series? Let me know. If you thought it was good, don't forget to comment on the battle you want me to cover in the comments below. For now, remember to leave a like and a share so we don't forget to hit the subscribe button, turn on notifications, and also join the membership so you don't miss out on exciting videos later. Thanks for watching the video. See you in the next videos. Peace.